Okay, to finish this unit, let's take a look at determine the sample size. Remember, when we round, we round up always. So assuming that N1 and N2 are equal, find the sample size needed to estimate P1 minus P2 for each of the following situations. We want a margin of error equal to 0.07. So let me just say that I want my margin of error, in this case, to be 0.07 with a 99% confidence interval. Okay, we've done this before, right? My C-score. What is my C-score here? My C-score of 99% is 2.575. I'm going to round this to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to call this 2.58. My C-score in this case, I'm going to use 2.58. And I have my P1 is about 0.3. My P2 is about 0.6. So having that said, since P1 is 0.3, I'm going to say Q1 is 0.7. Because remember, to find my Q, I go 1 minus P. My Q2 is going to be 0.4. Now, this is the cool formula we're going to use for us to find our sample sizes. We're going to go my C-score. Remember my C-score, I have it rounded to the 2 decimal places, and I go to this square. And then I'm going to do P1 times Q1 plus P2 times Q2. Notice how I have the P1, Q1 plus P2, Q2 inside the parentheses because I wanted to do the addition on its own. Divide this by the margin of error all squared. I have my information. I'm just going to type this on my calculator. Good thing we have a cool calculator on the side. So I have a fraction, and I know I have, let me go 2.58 squared. You guys see the A2? And then I have open another parentheses, right? And then I have 0.3 times 0.7 plus 0.6 times 0.4. Let me close my parentheses. And at the bottom, I have, let me do 0.07 squared, and I'll even close my parentheses. So I have 611 point something. Okay, remembered. I've done sample sizes with you guys a few times already. For a sample size, I'm gonna round it to the nearest. I'm gonna round it to a number, a whole number, but my whole number cannot be less than 611.3. So if I choose 611, that is less than 611.3. So in my case, I'm gonna say my sample here has to be 612. Okay, now let's take a look at my 90% confidence interval. Okay, 90% confidence interval. Do we know our C-score? I know my C-scored. I go 0.90 divided by 2, so 0.45. I find on my C-score table, and it's 1.645. But I'm going to round this to 2 decimal places, so my C-scored is 1.65. That's my C-score. My C-score table is 1.65. My confidence interval and then width of 0.47. Okay, so when this is going to give me my margin of error. when I say my width is 0.47, remember how in our margin of error we have mu minus our error, and then mu plus our error. So I have my error twice. That's what gives me my margin. So for me to find my margin of error, I'm going to go 0.47 divided by 2. Okay, it's okay for us to get long, well, not that long of a decimal. So I have 0.47 divided by 2. Use a calculator if necessary. I'm going to get 0.235. Now this number, my margin of error, I'm not gonna round it to 2 decimal places. I'm just gonna leave it at 0.235. Okay, now I need a P1, right? I'm gonna need a P1, obviously Q1. I'm gonna need my P2 and my Q2. Now here it says assume that there is no prior information available to obtain approximate values of P1 and P2. Okay. If I don't have P1 and P2, obviously I don't have Q1, Q2. However, I need something. So I'm gonna say we're gonna use a conservative approximation because I don't have information about those. I'm gonna assume that my P1 is 0.5 and obviously my P2 is 0.5. I'm gonna be right in the middle. So for my Q1, remember I have to go 1 minus P. Well, I happen to get 0.5 as well. And for my Q2, I get 0.5 as well. I know the formula that I used in my previous question. So let me go to my calculator here. And I know I have a fraction. Let me do for my first one, I have 1.65 squared. I close my parentheses. And then I have P1 times Q1 plus P2 times Q2, close my parentheses. And my margin of error, remember it was 0.235. So 0.235 squared. Okay, so it tells me it's 24 point something. 24 point something. All right, so I'm going to round it up to 25. Let me come back to my work here. So my sample in this case will be 25.